I'm in the background here where you can't see me, but this is the best we could do. And this is Jake and Michelle, two of my friends from the sanctuary where I volunteer. And they've been here for about 4 months, right?
Yep.
And we're really sad because today is their last day. They're leaving tomorrow, and they have just been such an asset here. They've been learning all about um, farming and permaculture and all that good stuff. So we've been really grateful to have them here. I wanted to ask Jake and Michelle, they're both vegans, right?
Yep.
And I wanted to interview them about their diet and when they started and all that good stuff. So we'll go ahead and start with Michelle. Michelle, did you grow up vegan?
I did not. I didn't. My family was not, and no one really ever thought about it in my family. Um, I think every now and then when I was a kid, I'd try to stop eating meat, but I don't really remember why.
Mm-hmm. And so then you ate pretty much a standard American diet in your household.
Yeah.
Salads, meats, potatoes, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And you, Jake, did you grow up vegan?
No, I probably didn't know what veganism was until I got to college. But both of my sisters at various points in my youth were vegetarians, so I always had literature laying around for me to scare me away from meat, and eventually it did work, I guess.
Okay. And when you say they were vegetarians, did they also exclude eggs and cheese, or were they at that time just excluding meat?
Just meat.
Just meat.
Yeah, they both ate dairy and eggs.
So when is it that you transitioned into a vegan diet?
It was probably about 4.5 years ago. It was just a lot of different factors, and it's been great so far.
Okay. And what about for you?
Yeah, stopped eating meat about close to 5 years ago now, and maybe 4.5 years ago, something like that, around the same time. And then about 2 years ago, I went from being vegetarian to vegan.
Okay. And so what was that transition like for you?
Let's see if I can remember. It's been a while. At first, it was a little hard getting away more from chicken and cheese and things like that. Um, I never really ate that much red meat in at least college and high school. So it took a little while, but now I don't miss it at all, and I'm much happier now.
Okay. And for you, Jake, what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, well, the hardest part, I remember the transition, and continues to be the hardest part for me, is I eat a lot, so I like to eat people's leftovers. I don't like to see things go to waste. And so when I would go out to eat with people who are eating meat or now eating dairy products and they leave stuff over on their plate, my instinct is to gobble it down for them. But that wasn't a possibility anymore, it wasn't an option for me. So that was the only difficult part of the transition. Otherwise, it wound up being a lot smoother than I anticipated and much easier. Yeah.
So if somebody was to ask both of you, why did you take this journey on? What was this about? What was it inside you, or what did you observe that really made you feel like I want to do this?
For me, it wasn't really one thing. It's so many factors. I think I started really when Jake started questioning it more, and then I started reading more. But I think just the ethics and morals that I think I've come to have in myself have made me not want to be a part of any kind of abuse in the animal industry.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it just comes down to a question of suffering. And at one point, we asked ourselves, kind of, can we go ahead and have a diet that minimizes the amount of suffering, and it didn't affect our health or really the convenience of eating for us. And so we just decided if it wasn't necessary at all for us to eat meat and eventually to eat dairy, then there should be no reason for us to do it.
Okay, so for folks out there who are maybe thinking about starting to eliminate some red meats and things from their diet, but maybe they're saying, eggs really don't hurt anything, cheese really doesn't hurt anything. Michelle, can you talk about some of the reasons why you decided to go ahead and eliminate things like dairy products and eggs from your diet?
Sure. Well, dairy, the cows there are always pregnant. That's the only way. Just like humans, they can only have milk if they're pregnant. so the babies are taken away from them right away, and most of them go into the veal industry, which is a horrible industry too, where calves are just tied up and slaughtered when they're just a few months old. And then eggs, it really comes down to me for me that any male chicks that are born are instantly slaughtered. They're put into wood chippers or anything that's around, and just all around the suffering that goes into any kind of industry like that.
Yeah, the treatment for chickens that produce eggs is, from what I understand, the worst treatment of any animals that are raised, or I guess the industry term is produced for human consumption. They're kept in battery cages with other chickens with a wire bottom. They don't even ever have to feel solid ground. So the animal or the fetus or whatever we're calling it inside the egg may not feel the suffering um, directly, but the animal producing the egg sure does without any question.
Well, those sound like some really good reasons, and that's certainly something to think about. So I want to transition a bit into, now that you've been vegan or vegetarian for both of you about 4.5 years now, what are some of the positive things you've noticed about being on this diet? Have you noticed, I'm assuming there've been some positive physical things. Have you noticed other aspects that have been really positive for you being on this diet?
Definitely. I used to get strep throat or sick a lot, and now when I get sick, I'm over it in a day. I haven't been seriously sick in a really long time. Um, that's probably one of the biggest benefits. And then also just eating. I feel good about what I'm eating. It's something that I choose every day to be a part, to be a part of my life, and I think that's the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've noticed my fitness level is higher than it's ever been. If I'm not always exercising, I always can stay at a pretty good fitness level, which wasn't always the case when I was eating lots of saturated fats and cholesterol from meat and from dairy. Um, and The other thing I found is that we pay a lot more attention to what's in our food. We have to read labels to make sure there's no dairy and stuff. So we are also noticing that all the other chemicals and things that aren't necessarily not vegan, but things that we don't want to put in our bodies anymore that we might not have paid attention to if we weren't sort of forced to read the labels on all the products that we buy.
Right, like maybe sports drinks is something that's vegan, but you might not want that because it has a lot of unnatural colorants and things like that, lots of sugars.
Right.
So, okay, well, good. Well, let's see. So, what are the types of foods that you eat? Talking about your daily routine a little bit. How do you make this? How do you make this something that's doable?
Really easily, actually. It took a little while, and I think that it's another benefit is that you get to learn about all the different foods that at least I didn't know as a kid. Um, we eat a lot of beans, nuts, rice noodles, coconut milk is a big thing right now. Let's see, we make different kinds of lasagnas, loaves, veggie burgers, and things like that. I think it's just a transition thing, and you have to just start looking at more foods that are out there. And that's the biggest thing.
Hmm. And so you're not raw. I know I mentioned that to Jake the other day, and you both said, we're not really raw foodists. We are vegans. But do you find yourselves including lots of raw? I would imagine there's a portion of your diet that's raw because it's kind of simple to grab a carrot. It's simple to grab celery. Do you do that also? Do you include some raw?
Yeah, we do, and I guess it would be probably more than somebody who's eating meat because we're probably just eating more salads, more produce, more raw produce than your average U.S. American. Um, but I think sort of I guess what we do with raw food more so is to incorporate it with cooked foods like beans or grains that we cook and mix it with raw produce. So we are eating more raw food than we were before, but it's still a mixture between cooked and raw food.
Okay.